Okay, so hello everybody, thanks for joining us today. Afternoon here in the UK, morning for some of you across the other side of the world. My name's Alice Langley. I'm an account manager here in the UK for Toby Dynabox, and I'm also a speech and language therapist. And I'm also joined by Tina Boise, who's our education manager and background of being an SEN teacher as well. So today we're going to be looking at adapting Snap Core First for Tots, teens and beyond. And we'll be getting quite excited about this session. So we're looking forward to it, and we're hoping that it's going to be a lot of fun. We do have the chat function down in the toolbar. So for those of you that have found it already, we are happy for you to put in some questions in there. We do have quite a lot to go through today, so what we're probably going to do is just go through everything. We probably won't have time to answer questions as we go along, but what we will do is at the end, we'll have a look and see if there's any questions that we can answer. We do have a couple of colleagues on the call, so hopefully they'll be able to answer some of the questions in the chat as we go along. So please do put something in there if you've got anything that you'd like to ask. So what we really wanted to look at today was using Snap Core First through all the stages. So we know that many of our AAC users start at a young age and will continue to use it throughout their lives. And so what we want to do is have a look at how we can use this one piece of software and how it can be adapted as we change through different stages. So we're going to be having a look at the kind of three main pillars. So we're going to be having a look at engagement. So we know that kind of social engagement side of language is really important. So we want to make sure that we've got language that's right for now, but also for later, so that we can kind of add or replace or move language as we develop as communicators. When we're looking at supporting literacy, we want to make sure that we can kind of change the supports within the system to match our level of development. So we know that as we grow older or as we go through different stages of education or employment, our needs are going to slightly change. And so we want to make sure that we can do that within the system. And of course, as ever, that kind of growth with us is really important. So we're going to show you how just with this one piece of software, regardless of all the changes that we make, we're never going to lose any personalisation. So whether we change the size of our grids or add or change vocabulary, any personalisations that we've made when we're 2 is still going to stay with us when we're 12 or 22. So let's have a little bit of a look at what that looks like. So within Snap Core First, we've got around 80 topics and growing that are available. And we know that over time that our interests and the things that we talk about are going to change. So if we're 3 or 4, we're probably going to be engaging in topics like bubbles and Mr. Potato Head and circle time. But as we get older, we may be going to be looking at things like dating, current events and music. So we want to show you how we can rearrange topics to have access to the most appropriate content to suit that age and that situation. So we're going to show you how to do that. Looking at our engagement tools, so looking at quickfires. So we know that within quickfires, we've got access to lots of different types of quickfires, whether it's general, whether it's greetings, personal needs. And we know that over time, as we develop, that the types of language that we use changes. So maybe 5-year-old Lois at this stage is going to be using things like, hi, how are you? My name is Lois. I like that. But as she gets older, she might be adding and adapting what she says. So she might have more varying ways of communicating with people as she learns to communicate with adults, with children, with people in a social situation. So we want to be able to adapt that as she grows older as well. So we're going to show you how to do that by hiding certain bits of vocabulary and then being able to show them as competency increases or as engagement in conversations grow as well. We also want to be able to add new content, right? So, you know, it might be that we want to add new topics around certain different things, add more vocabulary. So we can do that in lots of different ways in Snap Core First. We can do it from just downloading something from PageSet Central. Or it might be that we've got something on our computer that we created for somebody else, and we actually think this would work really well for this learner as well. So let's think about a teacher who's created a topic page around going on a field trip that they did with a class last year, and then they're going on the same field trip this year, and they think actually these same students will probably benefit from that topic. So I'm going to take that and download it onto their devices and their systems. We might also want to take a copy of a page that already exists, but actually maybe make a few tweaks to it to make it right. So it might be that we found a page that works really well, but some of the vocabulary we want to update or change slightly. And so we're going to show you how to do that as well. And Tina is also going to show you how to do that via bringing in this new Teen Talk topic that we have created. So this is something that we've just got got through, and it's available on PageSet Central, and it's all around Teen Talk. And I've got to be honest, there's quite a lot of stuff on there that I don't understand, but that probably says more about me than anything else.
I had to ask for help.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass over to Tina. What she's going to do now is she's going to show you kind of demo some of the stuff that I've just spoken through there. So over to you, Tina.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alice. So I'm going to show you a few things that Alice just talked about. So we'll start with topics. If you don't know the Snap Core First, there is a flat navigation where we have core words on the home page. But if we go to topics, we will find some formulaic language that can be really engaging in specific situations. So if we think of 5-year-old Lois, who is in maybe a reception classroom, year 1, and is engaging in things like playing with bubbles, or maybe needing to have a break time and going out to the playground. She'll find lots of different language that's right for her. But of course, as we start to grow up and our interests change and the situations that we're in change, we'll want to change the topics that are available to us. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. First off, if we are kind of getting to the point, and I've just gone, up to edit mode, where maybe bubbles aren't so much of our interest, but something like games. My older child, Stuart, who's 11, he really likes playing games. As you can see, I'm just picking this up, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to rearrange so that bubbles goes down towards the bottom. It's something that he doesn't want, or I could hide it. I'm going to show you how to hide in a moment. He still needs About Me. He's still working on doing desk work at school. But we just want to bring things that are more important to him into the forefront. I'm not ready for this, but at some point, I'm sure he's going to want to start to go and date or talk about sexuality. And you'll find there are 80 different topics that our team has provided you with to start with in Snap Core First, but you can always add more yourself. One way you can add is from PageSet Central. This is a sharing place that we have through my Tobii Dynavox. And every once in a while, our clinical team, who are very experienced speech and language therapists and other professionals working in AAC, will create some page sets to support us. It's also a place that other customers and users of Snap Core First can share things that they've made. So what I've done, and I'm sorry I don't have time for this in a 30-minute webinar, but what I've already done is gone to my PageSet Central through my Tobii Dynavox, and I have added the Teen Talk topic to my account. So here with just a blank button, I'm going to click this little link button here, and I am going to choose to import a page from my Tobii Dynavox. Now, Alice talked about a teacher maybe creating different topics for different needs. I know I can call out Carly. She's a teacher on this call, and she does this quite a bit. She might have it saved to a local file, a USB stick, and she wants to copy it over to different students' devices. She can do that. But I'm going to do it from my Tobii Dynavox. So I'm going to click on that. And right here, you can see everything that I have added from my Tobii Dynavox. We did some things around the coronavirus. There's a topic there. But right now, I'm going to add the topic for Teen Talk. And that's just going to bring that right in. And I'm going to select which is going to link from this page of topics. So I want to do the topic there and import that. and then it's done. And then it will show up right there. I can pick it up and drag it to the top, just like you saw me do before. So maybe I want to bring that right to the top because right now we're really exploring this language. We love using it. I can also go to the style and change the button backgrounds to either match the others or to be a little different to make it stand out. And now when I go in here, we'll see all the wonderful language that our team has put in here. Now I'm on a smaller grid size. As I've matured with using Snap Core First, or my access has improved, I may want to increase the amount of buttons. So I'm back in edit mode and I'm just going to go to page set and go to grid size and just move this up. Let's bump it up to the highest so you can see all these great sayings. And I know Charlie on the call.
I just squad wiped the entire team.
A teenager might be, or tweenager might be able to tell us what some of this means, because I don't know what squad wipe means.
What's the T?
But I have asked a few
kind of hockey
teenagers, and they have told me that they understand it. So we can sit there, and now we've got all this language that the clinical team, talking to lots of teenagers, have pulled this in these formulaic language together, where we've got questions, we've got comments, we've got positives, and we've got negatives, and lots of room to add things in. Now, that's one way that we can really engage using these topics. Another thing that Alice talked about was quick fires. So I'm just going to bump this back down. Actually, I can just stay here. We can see that we've got some language that's very personalized. Here's pictures of mom and dad. And when I go into greetings and social, we can see that there's more personalization here. Now, we've gone through and hidden some of the sayings in quick fires. So these are just quick formulaic sayings I can use in any setting. I want to ask people how they are, whether I'm in the classroom or at the pub. But we've hidden some of the language because Molly at age 5 may not need all of that language. She's not using it yet. She's not ready for it, or she can't access it. So now by going to this button here and editing, I can see the ones that have been hidden. So as Molly matures, I'm just going to click this multi-select button here. She may want to have a few different ways to ask, how are you doing, or to say that something is good. So I'm going to click on all these hidden ones and press this button over here with the eyeball, and that's going to have them show up again. So now as Molly grows up and she realizes when she is out with friends, she can say,
what's up?
But then maybe when she's talking to her classroom teacher, she needs to use,
how are you?
She's got those options, but we don't lose any of her personalization. I might want to edit that photograph to be her as an older child, but all of that personalization stays with her. There's no reason to go back and relearn. Everything stays where she's used to it being. So I think I'll hand back over to you, Alice, to talk about the next section. You're muted, Alice.
Every time. All right, thank you, Tina. So next we want to have a look at literacy and how we can kind of support that over time as well. So it might be that if we're starting with a young learner or somebody that's got emergent literacy skills, and that we want to start with symbol support. So we're going to have symbol support across all of our symbols, across all of the different pages and tools that we're using. It might be that actually over time, once they start to progress a little bit, as Tina just mentioned, that we might actually want to change the grid size. So we've got access to more vocabulary and more language. You'll notice here actually that we're using the switch scanning page for Snap Core First. So a specifically designed page for those that are switch scanners. Once that person is maybe continuing to develop, they've become older or they've developed some literacy skills, it might be that we can start to take some of these symbols away, and actually maybe they only need some simple support for words that are new or vocabulary that they've just been introduced to. And then over time, when they become older or literacy skills develop even further, we can actually make it completely text-based. So the exact same page set, everything stays the same in terms of location. So that motor planning all stays the same, but now we're just using just words. And this can be completely across the whole page set. On top of that, we want to support writing as well. So we have access to our keyboards, which are always accessible within Snap Core First. It's on that toolbar. We've got different ways that we can access this. So we've got an ABC keyboard. It might be that we want to use a QWERTY keyboard. And if we're using this for communication, we might want to be using this symbol prediction at the top. So if they're thinking of a word, they can't find it, they can maybe begin to spell a couple of those letters. We can help them find it through this predicted keyboard. But on the other hand, you might actually want to be using their keyboard for spelling, for writing, in which case you might actually want to take that prediction away, because we want to see what they can do kind of writing without that prediction. So what we can actually do here is we can just duplicate that keyboard. We've renamed it here as a spelling keyboard, and we've just taken the prediction away. So we can actually use two different keyboards, one for communication and one for writing and spelling. We also have integration of Boardmaker within Snap Core First. So there's a couple of features that are brand new, actually. They've just come through the past couple of days, but we've actually integrated the Boardmaker Student Center into Snap, which means that previously you could open up Boardmaker Student Center via Snap and switch between the two. But we've actually integrated it into one. So what you can do here is you can open up any activities that have been created within Boardmaker. And we've also included a bookshelf within Snap now, which gives you access to loads and loads of books. So whether we're wanting to do some reading and writing activities, we can access these books here, which is a really great resource. Again, you don't have to get them from anywhere. It's just completely integrated into the software. You're just clicking on that button. We can go through, we can read our books together. We can also link directly into Reading Avenue. So for those of you that are using Boardmaker online and are using the Reading Avenue curriculum, we can access all of the activities that we've got within there as well. So we can be doing some of our on-set Rhine exploration activities, whatever activities it is that we're working on at that point. We can also be using the Access IT. So this is an add-on dongle that you can basically plug into any computer, any device, and it will give that person control of that computer. So say you're in a classroom and the rest of the class are accessing an activity on the whiteboard, but our student can't access that because they're using Switch or they're using eye gaze. Via the Access IT, they can actually control the mouse and the keyboard, which means they can engage in any tech resource that the classmates are using. And it basically means that they can access, Word documents, games, YouTube, anything that's that their peers are able to access on the computer. So I'm going to hand back to Tina, and she's going to go through a couple of those for me.
Okay, so the first thing that Alice showed us was having symbols disappear. As our learners are able to decode or identify specific words, then we may want to remove that symbol support. We can do it by just removing a few different symbols. So I've gone into my edit mode, and right here I'm going to click multi-select because my learner can identify I and you and go and see and an and not. So I've multi-selected those, and then I'm going to go into style, and if I scroll down, I'm going to change the layout for those to go from matching the entire symbol set to being label only just in themselves. So you can see if I press done here, I've just taken the symbol support for those symbols away. Everything else stays remaining with symbol support. But as literacy skills develop, we may get to a point where we don't want symbol support at all. So now what I can do is go to pageset, and I'm going to go to style, and then down at the, no, hold on, it's a little bit of a different, here you go, layout. So I'm in buttons, layout. I'm going to change those to be label only. So now it's taken a symbol supported, I must have had this ticked before, I don't know why that one just has a symbol, but now I've taken an entire, what was symbol supported package, and I have changed it entirely into text-based, which is really, really powerful as our learners move away from needing symbol support. As their literacy development improves, then we can take those symbols away, which I think is pretty cool. Also, we can support our learners through using things that are in the dashboard. So referring to the bookshelf that Alice was talking about, this is brand new. Many of you who are using Snap Core First may have not explored this yet, but we do have integration with Boardmaker activities, as Alice explained, and this bookshelf, I think, is a wonderful way for our emergent readers to be able to come in and choose a book, and they can have it read out to them.
A dog's life.
And they can go through page by page, and just
My
like any
dog
other
might like
child,
to dig.
pick up a book and access it. They can read it on their own or get that support. So fantastic for our emerging readers. But we can take that a step further and also link to other Boardmaker activities. So as a Boardmaker Online subscriber, I've created this nice CVC spelling activity, and I can have that embedded right into Snap Core First. So my learner who's maybe going more towards developing conventional literacy skills can now go in and explore spelling and different activities that as a teacher I've created for them. And then lastly, for, again, those of you who are using Boardmaker Online, I can also launch out to Reading Avenue in the Boardmaker Student Center. This is a 3-year comprehensive literacy program that looks at reading and writing, phonics and spelling, all the pieces of the puzzle that we need to
Which
become
of these are animals you've
readers
seen?
and writers. So it's a fantastic program that we can link straight to and work our way through, and then go back to Snap Core First to continue communicating. All right, Alice, I'll hand it back over to you to wrap up on the growth part.
Thank you very much. Share screen, yes. Yes. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, the last part is looking at kind of growth in terms of the system itself and the amount of symbols that we have on. So for those of you that have used this, you'll know a little bit about this, but within Snap Core First, we have 2 ways in which we support growth. And we call these size and location based. So if we look at the top 3 pictures up here, you can see that this is what we call size-based growth. So we begin with a small number of buttons and we just grow it systematically. So we start at where that user is. So 3-year-old Molly might be at a stage where she can be using 2 buttons, but quickly over time, we're actually developing her access and she's able to grow and cope with more and more buttons on that screen. Location based, so if we're looking at these bottom here, so what you do here is that you begin with a large number of buttons, but you systematically fill it in. So basically what we do is we choose what we think our ultimate grid size will be, so what we think we'll be able to cope with eventually. So in this instance, the bottom right-hand corner picture. But to begin with, that's a lot of buttons, a lot of vocabulary. So what we're actually going to do is just hide a bunch of buttons, and then over time, we're just going to systematically unhide them until that grid is filled. And the real advantage of this type of growth is that it really supports that multi-planning side of things. So if you imagine, once that learner has learned where those small amount of buttons are, when we're adding buttons, those buttons are still staying in exactly the same spot. So they're not having to relearn where they are. And we know that actually the most proficient AAC users are not necessarily scanning for symbols every time, but they just know exactly where it is, just like you and I do with our keyboards. So it really supports the idea of multi-planning, and that over time, all we're doing is growing around those symbols that they already know. So you can actually build with Core First from a single button all the way up to a grid of 80. And it always maximizes what you've learned at a previous level. And this is quite a unique feature for software within this industry. You know, we do this and we feel that it's really a really important part of our software. So let's kind of give a couple of examples and look a little bit about kind of how we're using core words and how that might kind of change over time. So essentially, we know from core words that they're the kind of words that you and I use all the time, and that actually throughout our lives, we're always going to be using these core words. But what might change is the fringe vocabulary that we use with that. So let's look at this example of I like. So 4-year-old Molly might be asking for milk. She likes milk. When she gets a bit older, she might start experimenting a little bit more, and she might go up to cider, probably the big kind of cheap bottles that you get, 2 litres over here for a couple of quid. And then as she gets older and her tastes refine a little bit more, she might actually start wanting to ask for gin and tonic. So we can see that actually that function is the same, but actually it's just the fringe vocabulary around it that we're going to be modifying and keeping up to date as our learners grow. So we're continuing to learn with new and using more vocabulary, but we're not relearning any systems. Those systems are always going to be the same. Likewise with a keyboard, it might be that when Molly turns 18, she goes to the pub and asks for her first gin. And they ask her, what kind of gin do you want?
Not my Molly.
Might not be your first one.
she likes Tanqueray. She specifically wants Tanqueray, so she doesn't have that in her system. So she's going to go and she's going to use those spelling skills that have been so vital throughout her life, where it's come to this point where she can spell out Tanqueray because that's really important, and she can come to that keyboard and use that. So just to emphasize, all of these tools, everything that we use and the types of language are going to be the same. The systems, finding that language, all we're doing is refining and growing around that learner. This part is really important. So when it comes to the vocabulary, we obviously want the symbols around it that support it as well. And what's really unique within Tobii Dynavox itself is that Boardmaker provides and produces the symbols, but what we have that works really well is that kind of works full circle. So once symbols appear and are developed within Boardmaker and are available in that software, we can then transfer that into SnapCore First. So regardless of whether you're producing materials or supports in Boardmaker for a learner that is using SnapCore First, we can use all of the same symbols within that. So over time, it might be that, you know, they're beginning to use vocabulary like Lego and Mother Goose and Elmo. And then over time, their interests grow. We'll talk about cricket and dabbing. And then it might get, you know, they're talking about things like Black Lives Matter and social distancing. And so we're making sure that we can provide all of that vocabulary and we can just update that as we go through and as those users are developing and growing. So thinking specifically about teenagers, and this is quite
cover your eyes, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, don't look too closely. You know, the topic of kind of the types of vocab and words that we use comes up quite a lot with teenagers, and of course we know that we should be given access to the same language as their peers have access to. So when it comes to things like swear words, we've actually made sure that I've taken the words out of these because we didn't quite feel comfortable with having all of these words up on there. But if you can think what some of these are, maybe keep it to yourself for now. But we've really made sure that we've tried to make as many words available as possible. And what we've done over the past couple of weeks is we've worked with lots of people across the UK to look at different words and terminology that is used and that is common in slang and swear words, and we've updated those. I actually don't know how many symbols we came up with. Do you remember, Tina?
Well, at the moment we did a short list of 25, but I think there'll be more to come. But a lot of these words are variations on a similar theme, so I think you could change the labels that apply.
Yeah. So it might be that you know, obviously we want to add that to their vocabulary. Other things that we might want to kind of think about and use in these situations are things like positive behaviour supports. So it might be that you want to talk with some of our teens about kind of new words that are popping up that maybe they don't know, but they want to learn and they want to use. Maybe we can start talking about when's appropriate and when isn't. So when you're hanging out with your teenage brother, that's absolutely fine. But when you're at, school or a doctor's appointment, maybe we shouldn't use those words quite so much. So really kind of thinking about different ways that we can integrate this into their lives, but also thinking about teaching them how to use them appropriately as well. We have some great resources within Pathways that will go through basically everything that we showed you today. So adding, rearranging, growing our language. We have done this in a couple of different formats. So you can watch short video clips that will show you how to do this, or we also have some really great cheat sheets that will basically step by step take you through each of the guides of what Tina showed you. So adding vocabulary and moving it around, changing grid size. And that can all be found through the Pathways app. We'll be doing a follow-up email and we'll send some links around that as well. Equally within Pathways, we've got a great access to this goals grid, so an interactive goals grid that can help us figure out where our user is right now and how we can support growth with them as well. So what we're doing here is we're looking at 4 different competencies, so not just linguistic skills, but operational skills, how they're using the system, social skills and strategic skills as well. And what this does is it really helps us figure out where they are and how we can continue to push that progress and development. There's some great sections within the build skills section in Pathways that look at developing some of those communication skills. So it might be that we want to look at creative communication and how we can add some of that new vocabulary that we've learned as a teenager and use that in some of our interactions. So lots and lots of resources within Pathways that can really help build on some of those things that we've talked about today. So the idea is that we really want to support that growth through kind of progression of skills, through progression of language, but it's all about having to do it without relearning a whole new system. So we're teaching growth without relearning. We are simply just modifying the language and some of the skills around that. And so that's how we can support our users, right from tots to teens to adults. Was there anything else that you wanted to add at this point, Tina?
No, I don't think so. I think you've summed it up really well. We've only been able to really scratch the surface. There have been a few questions that have come through. You will receive a follow-up with the PowerPoint and some information. If you'd like to dive in further, we've got other trainings coming up. We also have our account managers, which you can get in touch with wherever you are in the world, and they'll be happy to take you through things. But I think you did a great job, Alice. I've got nothing to add. But I'm personally in no rush. So I think what we could do is just end the recording. We realize that your time is very precious and you may want to go off and do things. But if you'd like to stay, please feel free to stay on. We'll be able to ask you questions, show you things in greater detail. But we did promise this is a 30-minute webinar. We're already 3 minutes over. So I'm going to end this. Thank you for those of you that do need to dash off for your time and attention. And please feel free to